Is anyone truly convinced that Luna Nozawa from The Bold and the Beautiful has died? No, we did not think so. There's something strange about Luna dying in recovery with only Lee as a witness. Yes, Luna is dead. Yes, sure. We all know Lee has no qualms about tricking people into believing someone is dead in order to keep them on life support and nurture them back to health in their hotel room. She's an old veteran at this, and we'll bet Luna already has a great room at the Hyatt. Hey Luna, you've always wanted to live a luxurious lifestyle, right? It has to outperform her little one-room flat. Let us recall Lee's thoughts throughout the week. Lee suddenly felt horrible for Luna. Lee had despised Luna since she first met her in Los Angeles, especially when she used her Nozawa power to subdue her last summer after Luna placed Steffi in a cage and abandoned her to die. We sensed something was awry when Lee changed her tune. By the time Luna was in surgery, and Lee used her Nozawa power to resurrect her after she had bled out while bemoaning her troubles, it was evident that Lee was about to act. Lee couldn't bear the thought of cops waiting for Luna to take her back to jail, so she lied to her sister and told her that her kid had died. That's where we saw the redemption arc emerge. Perhaps The Bold and the Beautiful concluded that Luna's repeated blaming of her acts on her erratic mother was not an explanation for double murder. So the program supposedly opted to transform Poppy into a nasty, heartless monster who felt relieved to find her child had perished. Yes, that may turn someone into a murderer. Even Steffi was appalled when she heard Poppy say those words, and we all know Steffi was ready to kill Luna if she could. It was one of the most frightening and awful things we'd ever heard on a drama. Even the most deranged villains adore their children, and do not express joy and happiness when one of them dies. That puts Poppy Nozawa in a league of her own, and it may be the only thing that makes the audience feel terrible for Luna, even if our idea is incorrect and she is still alive. But Luna is not dead. No way, right? Liam is also not dead, at least not yet. But he showed Goliath power when he grabbed for the rifle and shot Luna in the chest, declaring he was already dead. Liam refused to let a little injury, such as a bullet wound, bring him down. He was going to save Steffi because Liam made a pledge and was determined to keep it. The sister wives are now by his side, hoping he may awaken, but the horrible incident at the Beach House Art School was quite shocking. We just aren't sure what. Perhaps that was simply another reminder that Finn cannot make a move without Steffi. He rushed through the door, surveyed the situation, and then froze there like a deer caught in the headlights until Steffi began barking orders. Do something, Finn. Save Liam, Steffi urged, pushing Finn to finally take action. We sincerely hope University Hospital does not put Finn on ER duty too much because there will be a lot of dead victims. But Finn is going to be Finn, Liam will be Liam, and Steffi? Well, Steffi will never stop being herself. Now Finn, do something. Leave it to B&B to transform Sheila 9 Toes into Sheila 8 Toes. When we learned that Sheila had been shot in the foot, we wondered if the soap would work there, and it did, much to our delight. And it appears to be Deacon's. Sheila's too. Our strange little couple who we don't understand, thought the whole thing was hilarious. And they might be correct. When will Sheila become Sheila 7 Toes, as we can sense it coming in the next few years? At the very least, Deacon will always be able to recognize his lady love after she is presumed dead. Sheila's toes. Luna may die. Liam suffered a gunshot wound. Steffi was terrified. Who can we trace it all back to? Yes, it is you, Dollar Bill. You made it all happen, but why? This is something we have never understood. Why did Bill like this girl he had just met, who turned out not to be his daughter? In fact, she duped him into believing he was her father, which should have rendered Luna persona non grata with Bill. Instead, he allowed her to live in his home under house arrest and felt sorry for her because she too had a difficult childhood. That is enough to forgive a double murderer, right? And then send her off to fend for herself. Nothing made sense back then, and it makes even less sense today. What possessed Bill to do such a thing and then release a daughter like her into the world? She killed 2 people and served 3 months in prison. Bill needs to face the consequences for being so dumb, and seeing Liam in that hospital bed may be the catalyst. Now, if we can move on from Liam's tumor story and finally let his father in, we may be going somewhere. Until next week, Scoopers, when Steffi presumably stops yelling instructions. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers suggest that Luna Nozawa's days on the daytime soap series are coming to an end. All evidence point to Luna succumbing to her injuries on the operating table. But is she truly dead? Rumor has it that someone may stage Luna's death and get her out of the hospital, and you'll never guess who. Here's what's coming up next on Bold and Beautiful with spoilers below. Will Luna die? When Lee Finnegan arrived at the emergency room, she immediately went to work in the operating room, racing to save her niece Luna. Lee has never been particularly fond of her niece, but when Luna Nozawa's life is in danger, the doctor appears to have changed his mind. Dr. John Finnegan's mother was clearly willing to go to any length to save his daughter. After all, Luna is also Lee's granddaughter. According to the Bold and the Beautiful spoilers, Lee will realize that Luna had little chance with Poppy Nozawa as her mother, and in a surprise twist, she will make it her job to defend her granddaughter. A few years ago, Finn was in a similar scenario after being shot. Finn's mother did the unthinkable. She stole her son from the hospital, took him to a secret place and nursed him back to health. Lee Finnegan makes shocking moves. According to the Bold and Beautiful rumor mill, Luna's Aunt Lee may decide to prevent her from going to prison and take her out of the hospital when no one is looking. To throw the cops off her track, Lee will have to fake Luna Nozawa's death, and then smuggle her out of the hospital when no one is looking. Perhaps Luna's other grandmother, Sheila Carter, might help. She knows a thing or two about faking your own death. Lee Finnegan had always been a woman who could maintain her poise in the most tumultuous situations. However, in recent weeks, her world has collapsed in unexpected ways. Her son John Finnegan remained the one unwavering constant in her life, her pride and lifeblood. So when she felt her hold on him loosening, particularly due to Luna Nozawa, she realized she had to act. Luna had become more than Finn's lover. She had infiltrated every aspect of his existence. Her influence became stronger by the day, and Lee saw it as not just hazardous, but also unacceptable. It started with whispers, small things that activated Lee's protective instinct. Luna's affiliation with the Forresters, her relationship with Poppy, and her volatile emotions created numerous warning lights in Lee's mind. She had tried to warn Finn and reason with Luna. Everyone save Lee was misled by Luna's charm, tenderness, and the impression of innocence she exhibited. Under that charming grin, Lee sensed something unbalanced, something dangerous. And when she discovered Luna's erratic behavior, which included secretive meetings and tearful breakdowns that no one else seemed to notice, her suspicions were validated. Then came the breaking point. Lee walked in on Luna in complete disarray. She was talking to herself in the mirror, pacing violently, and muttering things that made no sense. Lee could see Luna was falling into mental illness, but Finn was too blind to notice. That moment triggered something inside of Lee. She understood she couldn't keep waiting for calamity to strike. She needed to take control of the situation before Luna hurt someone, particularly Finn. Lee made a careful decision, rather than an immediate one. She devised a strategy with careful precision, drawing on all of her medical knowledge and cool logic. The concept was easy in theory but difficult to put into action. Pretend Luna had died. She had no intention of actually injuring Luna. Lee was not a murderer. But if Luna vanished and the world assumed she dead, Finn could be free. Lee felt Luna was free of manipulation, chaos, and the web of lies she was spinning. She started laying the groundwork. The first step was isolating Luna. Luna received a couple veiled warnings about taking time off from Forrester creations that were readily disguised as worry. Then came the prescription switch. Lee secretly changed Luna's meds under the pretext of professional guidance, dulling her senses and keeping her docile. Luna, trusting and increasingly reliant, never suspected anything. Lee planned a surprise mental health break for Luna, proposing to take her to a private retreat. What Luna didn't realize was that the place was a remote clinic, untraceable, and outfitted by Lee herself. The staged death was more elaborate. Lee placed evidence, a few of Luna's personal belongings, on a hiking trail along the Pacific coast. Then, using a well-timed text message from Luna's phone, she created the illusion of a final walk, a moment of reflection. Hours later, a dramatic fall from the cliffs. Authorities were notified and a search started, but all that was discovered was Luna's scarf, her phone with a cracked screen, and a blood-stained rock. The supposition was heartbreaking but plausible. Luna had fallen to her death. The news hit Finn hard. Lee, with brilliantly faked anguish, stood by her son's side throughout, soothing him and claiming to mourn the very girl she had stolen away. The Forresters were stunned. Poppy was inconsolable. However, no one questioned the narrative. It was devastating, unexpected, and strikingly similar to the types of accidents that had plagued the show's past. Luna survived in the shadows, hidden away in a secluded institution with a different name. She was disoriented, hazy, and emotionally exhausted, and had no idea what had happened. She was told she'd had a breakdown. She was told she needed to rest. She was told that no one could come. Her shaky sense of reality began to shatter altogether. That's precisely how Lee intended it. However, secrets like this never stay hidden for long, especially in a city like Los Angeles, where everyone has something to conceal and someone always finds out. Slowly, fissures appeared. Steffi Forrester, who has always been wary of Lee's intentions, began to notice flaws in the scenario. Why didn't Luna's injuries match the terrain? Why were there no eyewitnesses? Why did Lee insist on wrapping up the inquiry so quickly? Meanwhile, Poppy couldn't get rid of the impression that her daughter was still alive. She had vivid dreams. Memories of Luna's fragrance and voice echoed in her ears. She started going to the cliffside every day, believing Luna was sending her signs. When she noticed irregularities in Luna's medical records, which had been manipulated, her senses kicked in. She approached Lee, who deflected with cool authority, but the encounter shook the already brittle web of lies. At the same time, Luna began to regain her senses. Her memories came back in flashes: Finn's voice, the flavor of coffee in his flat, the sound of her mother's laughter. She felt something was very wrong. One night, she overheard two nurses discussing Lee. That was the initial spark. The following day, Luna attempted to leave the facility but was drugged. But now she knew. Someone did not want her to leave. Finn was tormented by Luna's death and couldn't go on. He poured himself into work and avoided relationships, but her absence bothered him. When he discovered one of her sketchbooks in a drawer he hadn't opened in months, full of unfinished sketches and half-written poetry, something inside him snapped. He started doubting everything. He contacted a former coworker of Luna's, who stated that Luna had confided in her about feeling unsafe with Lee. Those statements were loud and clear. Finn started excavating with help from Steffi and Ridge. Poppy, who was already deeply involved in her own inquiry, joined forces with them. They started piecing together the puzzle. The more they learned, the more grim the picture got. Changed prescriptions. Mysterious clinic bills. GPS information showed Lee's automobile near the coast hours before the alleged accident. It was damning. Lee, cornered, began to crumble. She said she had done it for Finn. That Luna was dangerous and had to be stopped. She claimed to have documentation, including notebooks and audio recordings of Luna's odd behavior. But when they examined the evidence, it was evident that the tapes had been edited. Luna's so-called breakdown was caused by drugs and seclusion. Lee had passed a line. With increased pressure, the clinic was discovered. Authorities intervened. Luna was discovered, confused, sickly but alive. The meeting of Luna and Finn was emotionally wrenching. He wailed, unable to understand what had happened. Luna clung to him, her body shivering and her voice shaking. She had been through hell and come out the other side. Lee was arrested. Her license was revoked. The mother who had formerly rescued lives was now a criminal in the eyes of both the state and her own son. Finn could not look at her in the same way. Though he understood the protective drive, he couldn't forgive her extreme acts. Trust was shattered. A mother's love had evolved into an obsession, which nearly destroyed everything. Luna returned to the arms of her loved ones and began the long road to recovery. Therapy, support from the Forresters, and Finn's unfailing love served as her foundation. She had been broken, but she wasn't beyond repair. In fact, her strength astounded everyone. She returned to Forrester Creations discreetly, concentrating on her artwork and avoiding the spotlight. And as the weeks grew into months, the town moved on, but not without consequences. The tragedy had a lasting impact on the Finnegan family, affecting the dynamic forever. Lee's absence was felt severely, and despite her attempts to make apologies from behind bars, her words went unheard. Finn and Luna, who were strongly bonded by the experience, faced new obstacles. Trust needed to be re-established. Nightmares tormented Luna. Finn felt guilty for not noticing the warning signs sooner. But they were determined to proceed. They found refuge in each other's arms, frequently escaping to the cliffside where Luna had been assumed dead, not to lament, but to reclaim it as a place of healing. This chapter served as a chilling reminder to everyone involved of how far fear can drive people. And for Luna, it was a demonstration of her fortitude. Lee attempted to erase her, but she emerged stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever to live her life on her own terms.